people talked about with the printing of Temple of Malady, Abrupt Decay would really have a, really put its stamp on this format, and it looks like it's done that.
People were trying to play Abrupt Decay and Black Devotion back when the mana fixers were nonsense. So it's not surprising once you get a scry land that Black-Green starts becoming very prevalent.
Probably shouldn't surprise you either that Abrupt Decay is a huge card in Modern and Legacy, so it only makes sense that a card would have an impact in Standard as well, right?
Yeah, well, those formats are a little bit different. Things that trade up and are cheap are going to be better in Eternal formats because the games are so fast, but Abrupt Decay is just such an efficient, versatile, powerful removal spell. It's not surprising to see it all over the place.
Temples to begin things here for each player as Tyler Winn is going to play an Eidolon of the Great Revel. We saw him last weekend in Cincinnati employing 4 of these in his main deck instead of 4 copies of Ash Zealot. Last weekend, had a pretty good weekend before he picking up his second loss to Adam Yurchik. But now he's in the elimination round. He's your #1 seed, and he's attacking here with the Eidolon. If that thing gets in oftentimes 4 points of damage, somehow it's done its job, and it's gotten the first 2.
You got to be happy with this opening if you're Tyler on the play here. Your Eidolon goes uncontested, deals 2, likely to deal at least 2 more. And that's all the type of start that Red White Burn needs to finish the game before it really gets to start.
Now let's not forget as well, after this game, we'll bring it back to the booth. We'll do a little bit of trivia action as we do have to give away 3 months of Star City Games Premium here, a Boros Charm. Tyler going to actually deal himself 2 points of damage. Boros Charm, however, will deal Kendall 4. But we'll announce the winner of our premium giveaway before we do head out for the evening after our quarterfinal round. See the life totals here, 18-14 in favor of Winn. He's going to play a mountain. He's going to tap some mana. Looks like this is a Chandra's Phoenix. Trigger, Winn going to deal himself 2 more points of damage. He doesn't mind, though. He's just trying to get Burdette dead.
Yeah, his body language is very cavalier, clearly does not care about these Eidolon triggers. Just happy to get the damage in.
And he does, going to put Burdette down to 10. Burdette does pick up a copy of Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and it looks like he has 2 of those in his hand. The card he wants right now is Desecration Demon, and he does have the 6/6 flyer for 4 mana.
Demon into Grey Merchant is very challenging for burn decks to beat. This puts a lot of pressure on Tyler right now to have one of his copy of Chain of the Rocks, only 2 in his list.
Skullcrack seems like it's probably pretty important at this point now, too.
Skullcrack would not be bad.
The race is certainly on at this point as Winn just has to pass the turn back over to Burdette. It looks like it might be burnout time now as Burdette does pick up another copy of Desecration Demon. He'll put the trigger on the stack for the first one. And Winn says, I'm going to sacrifice my Chandra's Phoenix, make sure that it can't attack, even though it is a 7/7 now. Burdette going to play another copy of the Demon. Does not have the 5th land for the copies of Grey Merchant in his hand. Just has to pass the turn back as Winn is going to go reaching. This is a Skullcrack. Trigger, Eidolon's going to deal him 2. He goes down to 14, but Burdette's going to go down to 7. Chandra's Phoenix is going to go back to the grip. Let's see if he's got another burn spell.
And I suspect if he's willing to use a Skullcrack here to get back his Phoenix, that he's putting together lethal this turn.
Or he has another Skullcrack in his hand. That's also possible.
Yes. But there's no way he would throw this away for non-lethal unless he had insurance.
And, this is a game that I think is very important for Tyler to win. The game when he's on the play and sideboards haven't happened yet, he's gotten off to a really nice start here. You think about it, Burdette's first play was a Desecration Demon.
Yes.
So this is a game you got to feel that you got to win this one.
Right, although, the Eidolon was causing Kendall all sorts of problems there. There was a Thoughtseize in his hand he was unwilling to cast because just too much damage with an Eidolon in play. I believe there may have been a Pack Rat in his hand as well, just not willing to deploy these cards into the face of Searing Blood and with an Eidolon on the table.
Eidolon having an effect on this game. Now you see Winn, he's in the tank trying to figure out exactly how he can kill his opponent. Does not have a flurry of burn spells to get the job done, it looks like. So you can tell he's in a little bit of trouble. Desecration Demon does not take long to close a game out, my friend.
And the burn deck does not have very much in the way of creatures to keep it pinned.
No. Burdette gonna untap. Now he's gonna take a draw. See if he can find the 5th land. He does. It's a Mutavault. That's a huge draw there for Burdette.
Although Tyler can sacrifice this Eidolon and it potentially unlocks quite a bit of his hand, or at least allows him to play a much more efficient game.
And he is going to sacrifice the Eidolon, so Desecration Demon going to bite the dust. Actually going to let the big one through, which is a little bit surprising.
It's possible this is a concession to Devour Flesh because he doesn't want to make one demon particularly large, but probably doesn't matter that much in the scheme of things. This game is going to be over one way or the other within a turn. And Burdette knows that Winn has a copy of Chandra's Phoenix in his hand that he chose not to deploy, so he's got to imagine that a lot of stuff is going to be flying at his head soon. And now Burdette's actually considering maybe not attacking with the demon. I think you almost have to at this point. Seems difficult not to, I'll say that. Yeah. It's just tough with that skull crack being thrown. There's a very strong implication that Tyler has more burn in hand and probably another skull crack as well.
And he actually is not going to attack. And you see that Winn is going to fire off a skull crack here to put Burdette down to 4. And Burdette's just going to pass the turn back. Winn with a Magma Jet's going to put Burdette down to 2. He's just looking for one more burn spell to get the job done.
And this deck has quite a bit of that. If he's leaving on top, that's going to be a quick game 1.
Yeah, you got to imagine he's found it at this point. Quick untap, take a draw. There's a Magma Jet. That's going upstairs, and that's going to get the job done. Tyler Winn going to win game number 1 here over Kendall Burdette. Red-White Burn up a game over Black-Green Devotion. We'll take a look at the sideboards in a minute here. We're going to bring it back to the booth, however, because it is trivia time. Mr. Sullivan, you've got the rules. I've got the question.
So Tyler's going to ask you a question. You're going to tweet that answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responders, one will be selected at random for 3 free months of Star City Games Premium content. It's about accuracy and not speed, so don't worry about submitting first. Just submit correctly. Also, please keep in mind that this contest is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com. Twitch.tv is in no way affiliated with this giveaway.
Question, we're going to take a look at Tyler Winn's deck list here. He's playing Red-White Burn, number 1 overall seed. Went 8-0 in the Swiss before drawing in the last round. His deck list is a little bit unconventional. He's got a card that draws cards in his deck. I believe it's a 2 of in there that you would not expect to see in a burn deck. So if you can name that 2 of card that actually draws cards in the burn deck, which is something it normally cannot do, hashtag the answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium. Make sure you are following at SCG Live. And again, we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round here, where Tyler Winn is up a game very quickly against Black-Green Devotion. Seems like game 1 is heavily in his favor.
I think heavily is strong, but definitely with the opening that his opponent had there, not really able to provide any resistance early on and getting hit by the Eidolon and then the Phoenix, that was all the advantage that Tyler needed to be able to finish off the game with his burn spells.
And he's certainly not allowed to lose that game where the opponent's first place Desecration Demon.
No, you got to win game 1, you got to win on the play, and with an opening as soft as the one he was playing against, you got to get that game.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. We're going to head back to the match, take a look at the sideboards here. You're going to see Kendall Burdette with a Lifebane Zombie and Underworld Connections, a Devour Flesh, 2 Doomblades, 2 Golgari Charms, 2 Farika's Cures, 2 Erebos God of the Dead, of Vraska, 3 copies of Duress. I know you're a fan of Duress and Farika's Cure in this matchup.
The discard spells are so good. If he can just attrition away Tyler's hand, then he can win pretty easily with any large creature. The Farika's Cure is, of course, also valuable as a life gain spell. Possibly he wants Golgari Charm as well. Maybe as another answer to the Chain of Rocks, which is Tyler's only answer to a couple of really threatening cards that Kendall brings to the table. But certainly the Duresses and the Farika's Cures are going to come in. I think the Devour Flesh is good as well. It's a reasonable removal spell against Tyler. And as you saw in that game, if Kendall had a Devour Flesh, he would have been able to kill his own Desecration Demon, gain a bunch of life, and win the game pretty easily as well. I've had Devour Flesh played against me to good effect when I played Burn on both ends, both killing my creatures and being used as a life gain spell on the Black Devotion player.
On the other side for Winn, up a game right now, still has not lost on the weekend. 4 copies of Fire Drinker Satyr, 2 Chain of the Rocks, a Dictate of the Twin Gods, 4 copies of Satyr Fire Dancer, 2 Wear and Tear, and 2 copies of Act of Treason. Fire Drinker Satyr is a card that we have seen people board in against this deck before. Vidianto Ajay is the person I think of the most who did that when we were in Los Angeles. Do you still like that game plan here?
Well, he has 2 different paths he can try to take here. There is the first path, the conventional one, which is just bring in your Fire Drinker Satyrs and use that to supplement your Eidolons and Chandra's Phoenixes and try to get this early creature advantage. There's the other route that he can take, which is trying to bail on creatures altogether to strand Kendall's plethora of removal spells. This would involve removing Eidolon and Chandra's Phoenix and bringing in, say, 2 Chain of Rocks, the Dictate, the 2 Act of Treasons. Maybe you had to leave in Chandra's Phoenix because he had enough cards to bring in, but those are the 2 paths. Given the fact that he can't bail on his creatures altogether, I anticipate that he'll bring in the Fire Drinker Satyrs. Probably wants the extra Chain of the Rocks as well because Desecration Demon is a hard creature to answer through burn spells. Act of Treason is interesting to me. Again, I personally have had really bad results with Act of Treason against Black Devotion. Usually there's a Mutavault or some other interchangeable guy left over to stack to the Desecration Demon. They're attacking your hand, so having situational spells is really tough when you're playing against all these Duresses and Thoughtseizes. But I know some people really like Act of Treason against Black Devotion, and the upside is high, so Tyler might want that as well.
Quick update for you guys here. Jamie Arnold with Brave Naya defeating Cam Atkins in game number 1. Brave Naya, the 3 seed, he was on the play. You felt that because Arnold was on the play, he'd have an advantage here, and he does take game 1 away from Atkins.
Yeah, and also the fact that, if Cam was splashing black for Doomblade, I think the matchup is very different. Because his ultimate price, and there's so many gold threats in the Brave Naya deck, I think the edge goes to Brave Naya.
Again, and when we do have updates in our other matches, we'll let you guys know. Philip Dickman playing Black-Green Devotion against Jesse Butler, playing Red-White Burn. And then Alex Bertoncini with Black-Green Devotion. He's your 7 seed against Elliot Cannon, playing Jund Monsters, your 2 seed. Again, when we have updates, we'll let you guys know. We turn our attention back here, though, between Burdette and Winn. Winn did win game number 1, and all he does is win this weekend, apparently.
He has had a lot of success this weekend and had a lot of success in Cincinnati as well.
He's going to take a mulligan this go around here, so going to move down to 6 cards. Burdette happy with his 7. It's been a burn and devotion weekend here. Again, Cam Adkins, the only player with Sphinx's Revelation in his deck in the top 8. Joe Lissette got off to a really nice start this weekend, but unfortunately unable to make the top 8 here. So, we'll see exactly how things break down for him, Rill, and Van Meter as far as the points are concerned after this tournament, and we know they've got a very important Legacy Open to play tomorrow.
I believe Chris tweeted that he finished in the top 64.
Okay.
So, some points.
Yeah, some points. That's all you can really ask for. Interesting to see. Again, the Legacy portion of things is where things are going to get really fun to watch because you've got 3 very skilled Legacy players. We've seen Van Meter do it with Sneak and Show. We've seen him do it with Tezzeret. A bevy of decks he's had success with in Legacy. Lissette with Miracles, of course, not going to stray from the path. And then Rill, he just won a Legacy Open a couple weeks ago with Delver. That's actually what kind of catapulted him into the race.
Yeah, the Milwaukee Legacy Open.
Yeah.
Joe Lissette does enough streaming with other decks. He's very active on Twitch streaming himself. And often it's not counterbalance. He's playing other Legacy decks. I think one of these days, Joe is going to surprise us and play something else in one of these Legacy Opens.
The thing that Joe was known for before Miracles was actually Cephalid Breakfast.
Yep.
And then people actually kind of figured out that that's what he was always on. So, I think one of these weekends, maybe he goes back to that strategy.
I have been defeated by Joe playing Breakfast at a local Legacy tournament.
Yeah.
Yep.
We see temples to start things off from each player. Both players pretty happy with what they see as Burdette's going to draw a card for the turn. See Golgari Charm and Devour Flesh, a Desecration Demon in his hand. He's got some of his more important cards. He's going to play a Temple of Deceit here, however. Look at that top card, consult his hand, figure out where he wants to put it. Looks like it may have been a copy of Bile Blight. You see a Pack Rat in his hand right now as well. So a pretty powerful hand here for the Black-Green Devotion player.
Desecration Demon plus a way to break up Chain of the Rocks is a really good start for Black Devotion in this matchup.
And this is a copy of Duress. So Winn's going to put the hand on the table. A Chain to the Rocks. Looks like an Act of Treason, a Lightning Strike, along with 2 Mountains and a Mutavault. And this is kind of what you talked about with Act of Treason. It's there, but does it matter very much? Doesn't really seem like it.
Kendall gets to take it the fraction of the time it's relevant and gets to play around it the majority of the time where it is not.
Yeah.
This was my experience. It seems, you're imagining in your head, they tap out for Desecration Demon and you have Act of Treason and it's awesome. It rarely works out that way.
So you see Winn's hand right now not very strong. Duress reveals everything that's there. Just a Mutavault and passing the turn back as Burdette does cross that off the list of cards that he just wrote down. Nightveil Spectre added to the grip here for the Black-Green Devotion player. A Swamp plus that is a pretty gosh darn good turn. And number 3, Winn is just left with a Magma Jet on Burdette's end step.
These are the type of draws that Tyler has right now where it's really hard to beat Black Devotion. You can see how the matchup cleans up a little bit for Black Devotion post-board too. Duress is such an upgrade over nearly any other card in the deck.
Winn scries both of those cards down to the bottom. Gonna play a Mountain. This is a Chain to the Rocks. Get the Spectre out of here. Can also attack with the Mutavault as well. That's exactly what he's gonna do. So Burdette's gonna go down to 16 before passing the turn back. Bile Blight the draw here for Kendall, and all he can do is pass the turn, so no turn for Desecration Demon. As Winn does draw another copy of Chain of the Rocks, he's gonna serve in with Mutavault, it looks like. A little bit risky here, I think.
This is a really risky attack. If there's an Abrupt Decay or a Golgari Charm to blow up that Chain of the Rocks, then Nightveil Spectre gets to block the Mutavault. It's really bad for Tyler.
And there is a Golgari Charm. And that is going to blow up the Chain of the Rocks. So this is where things get mighty ugly. Nightveil Spectre coming back in. It's time to ambush that Mutavault. And that's what it's going to get the chance to do. A huge turn there from Burdette.
If he wasn't really ahead before, he's certainly really far ahead now.
Another Chain to the Rocks is going to take down that, but the damage was done there by Burdette as draws a card for the turn. May have been a Hero's Downfall, but he's just going to pass the turn back. And sure, he doesn't have lands right now, but that's okay. He's not underneath any pressure. Here's another Golgari Charm, going to take down this Chain of the Rocks. Here's a Boros Charm to make it indestructible.
And Tyler cannot win the game making these exchanges. I'm not saying that Boros Charm is incorrect, because he may not be able to allow that Night Veil Spectre to get unlocked here. But Tyler has to spend all of his resources just trying to kill Kendall. Anytime Kendall has to interact card for card, that's a win for Kendall.
Thoughts he's going to take down the Active Trees, and Winn is out of cards at this point. Just has to pass the turn back. He's going to need a series of draws to get back in this one, and Mountain is not what he is looking for. Burdette going to draw a card. It's a copy of Doomblade. He's got a lot of removal in his deck after sideboard.
Even though Tyler doesn't have that many creatures, maybe that he just prioritizes making sure that he doesn't fall behind in tempo. Maybe he just wants to remove cards like Underworld Connections from his deck to make sure he's not taking incremental points of damage.
Fire Drinker Satyr going to bite the dust there from the Doomblade that Burdette picked up on the previous turn. Draws a Grey Merchant of Asphodel before passing the turn back. All Burdette needs is lands to be able to win this one. Let's see if he finds one. He does not. Picks up a Thoughtseize.
This is pretty crazy. I mean, a 4th land and Desecration Demon comes out, and it's a pretty easy game.
Going to fire for Thoughtseize. Burdette is at 12 now. Let's see what Winn has in his hand. It's just 2 lands. If Winn is able to run off a series of burn spells here.
And this may be the type of game where Active Treason ends up being good, too. From this spot.
Sacred Founder going to come into play tapped. Winn going to pass the turn back. I agree with you. Active Treason could be mighty fine here. There's an Overgrown Tomb. Dare play that untapped.
That's really risky. I mean, then you're in a spot where Active Treason plus a 4 damage spell kills you, so.
Winn draws his card. He's going to play a Mountain, just passes the turn back over to Burdette, who will take a draw. It's another copy of Grey Merchant. Here is Desecration Demon. Still risky to play the 6/6. Active Treason could be looming, as Winn's going to draw his card for the turn.
Again, 2 copies in Tyler's sideboard.
There's an Eidolon of the Great Revel, and just passing the turn back. Probably a sigh of relief there.
Oh, absolutely. Kendall dodged the big bullet there. That was the one window for Active Treason to be good. Now he's probably in the clear. Although still, without the ability to play these Grey Merchants, it's still a little bit dangerous.
See what Burdette wants to do in this turn. Did pick up a copy of Abrupt Decay. You can kind of see it after sideboard too. Chain of the Rocks, you know, it's a card that's supposed to have a big impact. Take care of Night Veil Spectre, take care of Desecration Demon, but you can't imagine it living very long.
It's tough because the Black-Green Devotion deck is so overloaded removal, and you just don't have that many targets. You have to keep the Chain of the Rock in because you don't really have much in the way of better alternatives, but it's very rare that you play Chain of the Rocks on something and it just sticks for the whole game.
You saw BioBlade get cast on Eidolon of the Great Revel pre-combat, as here's a Chandra's Phoenix. The reason for that is to make sure that it couldn't sacrifice a Desecration Demon. Phoenix looking to get in the red zone here, but Burdette does have a copy of Abrupt Decay, and a Boros Charm is going to get cast here. It's likely targeting the Chain of the Rocks, making it indestructible, and so that the 2 damage could come across.
Okay. It looked like Kendall was pointing the Abrupt Decay at the Chandra's Phoenix, and I was very curious about Tyler's use of Boros Charm there.
Sure.
But if it's targeting Chain of the Rocks, that makes much more sense.
Burdette does draw a land for the turn. It is a Mutavault, and perfect land to draw here for him, as he's got plenty of black mana. That'll provide him with another attacker. We're going to put the Demon Trigger on the stack. In for 6 we go. Burdette's going to go down, Winn's going to go down to 8. Burdette's life total is likely moving up, though. And that is going to do it. Tyler Winn concedes immediately, as Grey Merchant of Asphodel is going to take it down here. Winn's hand wasn't great. He did have to mulligan that game, so not too surprising to see this one go to 3.
A mulligan from Tyler plus a duress early from Kendall is kind of all that he needs if Tyler's hand is not very good.
Mono Black doing what Mono Black does. Take your cards, kill your Desecration Demon.
Now, this is much more dangerous on the play, especially if Tyler has a Fire Drinker Satyr.
Yep.
Then that early momentum, Tyler might be able to carry the whole way through. But Kendall on the play has access to Doomblades and Bile-Blights and Golgari Charms to break up that draw, and so it's much less effective. So
See both players going back to their sideboards here, see if anything will change for either player. Again, we do know that Jamie Arnold is up a game, Brave Nye up a game over Cam Atkins playing Esper. I'm not sure about Butler versus Dickman or Cannon versus Bertoncini. What we do know, 3 Black-Green Devotion decks in the top 8, 2 Red-White Burn decks. Not too surprised to see the Devotion deck really run over this tournament.
this was our expectation coming in. I felt after Andrew Tenjum won in Cincinnati last week that the deck is so obvious. It's such an obvious week 1 deck that backed up by a tournament win that it was going to be all over the place here. And so 3 copies in the top 8, not surprising.
We do know that Arnold and Atkins are going into game number 3 here. Cam able to tie things up. That'll put Jamie Arnold on the play for game 3. Brave Naya versus Esper Control over there. I know that's also our backup match, and hopefully we'll have the chance to jump over. But this match has been pretty good so far. Both decks doing what both decks want to do in each of the respective wins.
Yeah, I was about to say, both games were pretty close to textbook. Even though in game 2, Kendall missed his 4th land drop for forever and made the game a little bit closer than it otherwise would have been, he basically executed what the Black Devotion deck wants to do here, which is get out in front, use some discard spells to gain information, and clear a path for a large threat. Even Night Veil Spectre is capable of doing a ton of damage, because once Night Veil turns over a mountain, now you're turning over a lot of removal spells and a lot of burn spells as well. So even it doesn't have to be just Desecration Demon, and it doesn't have to be just Grey Merchant. Even Night Veil Spectre is capable of doing some serious work.
I wonder if Winn moves out Chain to the Rocks after sideboard. Seeing Abrupt Decay and Golgari Charm would make me want to not have that card in my deck after sideboard.
The problem is he's got way too many different game plans he's trying to execute, and I guess he could cut Chain to Rocks altogether, but then you're leaving yourself very exposed to Desecration Demon.
That's cool. Hope they don't draw one.
Sure. That's not a bad plan.
Yeah.
That's a reasonable path.
It sounds ridiculous to say, but I don't want to go through this work of trying to beat Desecration Demon with Chain to the Rocks in my deck when I know my opponent. Chances are either they're taking it with a discard spell, because like they can just duress you in the first turn and carve a path. And if part of the path is, okay, Chain to the Rocks isn't going to do anything, then they'll just take that card. And even if they do, let's say you top deck it, they can still have answers to it. So it's not the end-all, be-all.
Yeah, I think the way that I like to approach the matchup if I'm in the red-white burn seat is to get your hand as empty as possible and then have no strictly reactive cards to draw, because that takes a lot of the sting out of their Thoughtseizes and Duresses, which is one of their most powerful tools against you. The more that you're sitting on cards like Chain to the Rocks and Act of Treason, cards that they can make you discard at their leisure, and cards that if you draw in the mid-game may end up rotting in your hand, therefore turning their Thoughtseizes and Duresses back online, the more that you're giving percentage points back to the Black-Green Devotion deck.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty absurd to just, say, I hope they don't draw that card or whatever, especially when they have 4 copies in their deck and Scrylands. But, sometimes that's just the game plan.
And also, they can cast on turn 4 and you can still race it, especially if you have Skullcracks and War Leaders healing. So it's not like you just lose the game, even if you don't have answers to it.
We'll see what strategy Winn wants to employ here, as he will be on the play. Again, you got to like your position if you're on the play in this matchup. You see Winn taking a look at his opening hand. Burdette going to do the same here. Tyler Winn, number 1 seed. Fire Drink Crusader to start things off.
And that's the opening right there. This is so much more powerful on the play.
Burdette with an Overgrown Tomb and a Temple of Deceit in his hand.
He's got a lot of power. I think his hand has a Freakish Cure and 2 Thoughtseizes, but he's got to be careful with how he sequences his lands. Make sure to minimize the amount of damage he's taking along the way.
Temple's going to leave that card on top, pass the turn back. Winn going to draw a card. This is a mountain. We're going to see an attack here in just a moment. The question is this for 2 or 3? Oh, boy.
Wow. This is really good.
Boy.
This is really good against Freakish Cure and really bad against Bioblade.
Okay, well, we're going to find out right now if this is going to be a game-winning play or a game-losing one.
Well, I like this play just from Tyler. It's not like
Yeah.
these Fire Drink Crusaders have a long shelf life of being good. And if Kendall is just on Freakish Cure or just on Devour Flesh, this is an incredible opening for Tyler.
Yeah.
It's bad against only Bioblade, but you got to take a chance here.
It looks like this is a cure. That's going to take care of Fire Drink Crusader. Winn's going to take 2 from that, of course. The Jackal Pup type effect, and Burdette's going to gain 2, but you got to be happy with this.
And that's why it's a good calculated risk from Tyler. Imagine Tyler just says attack you, pump, and Kendall goes untap, Freakish Cure you. The game's probably over. Tyler's too far behind. So even though it looks like Tyler is just being unnecessarily risky, I think he's doing a better job playing around other cards by playing the game this way.
Temple of Triumph puts the top card to the bottom. Tyler's going to attack here. He's going to trigger this, so he's going to deal 5 points of damage, but that's going to go down to 15.
These Fire Drink Crusaders are so powerful post-board.
15, not 16. Let's see what Burdette has to do on his 3rd turn of the game.
And these are all small wins because Kendall spends his entire turn using a removal spell, playing a removal spell rather. Tyler gets to hit again, and he's not casting the burn spells in his hand. That's the critical piece of all this. All of his resources are still left over.
Winn should be at 17 from the Fire Drinker activation. The grip of Lightning Strike, Magma Jet, and Boros Charm. Good ones all around.
Yep. I mean, probably had to take Boros Charm here because it's just all about mana ratio to damage at this stage.
It's kind of appealing to take Jet because that one scries. I think Lightning Strike is the one that's, farthest away from taking.
Yeah, I think you had to take Boros Charm here.
I think I'm with you, just because it deals the most damage. I mean, again, the only reason that Jet's appealing is because it can smooth out the draws for the next couple of turns.
No, Magma Jet's good here, but it's also possible that Tyler's just going to spend all of his mana dumping into Fire Drinker Satyr for the foreseeable future.
It's realistic. Quick update for you guys. Jesse Butler, red, white, burn, moving on. Defeats Philip Dickman, playing black-green Devotion. 2-1, and he'll be playing the winner of this match. As an Overgrown Tomb, looks like it came into play untapped, and it's going to take down a Fire Drinker Satyr. 11 is exactly what Burdette is at. Here is a Temple of Triumph. That card stays on top very quickly for Winn. The question now is, do you attack for 2 or 3, Patrick?
It just depends on if Tyler knows he has lethal in his hand here. If he doesn't have lethal next turn for sure, then you just pump. Leave your resources left over. Make Kendall answer this Fire Drinker Satyr, and then start casting your spells.
Oh, that's what he did. He did pump. Attacks for 3, puts Burdette down to 8. You saw Burdette draw another copy of Thoughtseize. He's got a Hero's Downfall, Devour Flesh, and looks like a Nightveil Spectre over there. Not the best hand we've ever seen. There is the 2-3. Lightning Strike can take care of that if Winn wants to. Yeah, that Lightning Strike might be reserved for the Dome, though.
I don't think you can spend your turn casting Nightveil Spectre.
There's a Lightning Strike.
This turn's just too bad for Kendall. You could have cast Hero's Downfall and gotten the same output here, except Tyler had the option of doing something else if he felt so inclined.
A pump and an attack for 3 is going to put Burdette down to 5. Remember, Winn kept the top card of his deck on top the previous turn with the Temple, as Burdette draws a Temple of his own. And we know that Winn has a Magma Jet in his hand. Burdette going to take a look at the top card here, figure out where he wants to go, and it's going to go on the bottom. Does he dare cast the Thoughtseize?
I don't think he can do that. But even if Kendall gets out from under this board, his hand doesn't allow him to proceed anywhere. He has no Grey Merchant, no Desecration Demon, just removal spells in his hand. So he's at the mercy of Tyler's draws here.
You see, he put the Thoughtseize in the front of his hand. He's considering it. His hand right now is 2 Thoughtseizes, a Hero's Downfall, and a Devour Flesh. Powerful cards to be sure, but Thoughtseize when you're at 5 life, not where you want to be.
Not at all.
And he is going to fire it off. He's going to go down to 3. Let's see what he's looking at. A Lightning Strike and a Magma Jet.
So I guess you take Lightning Strike and then hope that Magma Jet doesn't find anything for quite a few turns.
You don't have much of a choice. You have to take the strike as you are at 3. Devour Flesh to Fire Drinker Satyr. And hope for the best. It's not pretty.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
For those of you wondering at home, Duress is much better post-board than Thoughtseize.
Winn going to draw a card here. He'll attack. He's going to pump, and Burdette is going to cast a Devour Flesh. This is a Boros Charm, and that is a player. Moving on. Tyler Winn, the #1 seed with Red White Burn, does defeat Kendall Burdette 2-1. Black-green Devotion has been dispatched, not once but twice, and we'll have a Burn mirror in the semifinals on that side of the bracket.
So guaranteed to have a Red White Burn deck in the finals. Pretty impressive stuff. Both the builds are a little bit different from one another. The mirror match has its awkwardness to it, but they will be squaring off tomorrow morning.
A bit of charm, too. It's always fun to just see players just throw their cards at each other and see who gets it done first.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Tyler Winn, still undefeated on the weekend. 8-0-1, and the Swiss wins this quarterfinal matchup over Mr. Burdette.
How good were Fire Drinker Satyrs post-board?
Really good.
Really good.
Really good.
Really good. It's this tough thing against Mono Black Devotion or Black Green Devotion because, you don't want to have exactly one threat to their one answer spell. You either want to overwhelm the removal, which Tyler was able to do, even though Kendall had all the spells, he didn't have enough time to deploy it efficiently, or you want to strand them with removal spells in your hand. The problem